Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about identity, the way it impacts our lives, our relationships, our work, our situationships, or whatever we go through in our lives. It could be health, work, intimate, and even friendships, and whatever we're going through. And the way our identity really impacts this. So we're going to talk about the fears, we're going to talk about the primary and secondary benefits, and then we're going to talk about the potential outcomes of our shifts in identity. For those who don't know me yet, my name's Olivier, also known as the Fucked Up Therapist, and I'm here on YouTube and also on Spotify and various podcast platforms. I work as a hypnotherapist, energy healer, and do online coaching sessions for people around the world and in presence by living in Fuerteventura in the Canary Islands. And I support your well-being and inner growth by having gone through that path myself also. First of all, what's identity? Identity is what defines us, what we decide that makes us who we are. So it could be our nationality, it could be our gender, it could be our job, or it could be simply the way we dress and all our social standards. This could define our identity. Maybe some of you define yourself by I am this, I am that, I am such a person, I am from such a country. Yes, we all are somehow, we all have a form of identity. Now the question is that good for us or not? So this has been a question that I've gone through throughout my whole life, having had multiple jobs, multiple activities, multiple events take place in my life and lived in various countries. How do I identify, or at the most, how am I deconstructing this identification in order to reach something greater or bigger on the long run? One of the biggest things with identity is that I believe that there's no incurable disease, for example, and I believe that we can really change our outcomes from one day to the next, make different moves every day. They could be easy, some could be hard, but we're going to have to face them with this identity. Ourselves, our surroundings are defined by our identity, who we consider we are. One of the actual scientific proofs of that is that they had a few studies a few years ago noticing that people who would identify, for example, in a job, in a position after retirement, most people would actually die 2 or 3 years after. Why? Because they could not identify as something else. They were not capable of identifying themselves into being retired, living another life, and they would absolutely block on this. So now, how does this work? First of all, when we wish a change, it could be through incurable disease, chronic health issues. It could also be because we're unhappy in our job, burnout situations, in our relationships, staying in situations which don't work for us. And what are the other fears which we might have in our identity? Where are we feeling stuck in our lives? And I felt stuck many times. First of all, staying in something which was just in a box, doing one thing of my life. I noticed that didn't work for me. Maybe it works for some, and that's great. Again, everybody has their path, so I hold no truth. In the way that I see things for myself, I've noticed that I was exposed to my own fears, and I had to go through the overcoming of them. This podcast is also one of them, fearing to be seen. So it's also a self-exposition, the same way that we're all on a path and nobody is to be put on a pedestal. So with identity, one of the important parts we can start looking into are the primary and the secondary benefits. So what are primary and secondary benefits, you might ask? Well, let's take the case of someone who has a disease or an illness, and that person was maybe, let's say in a family, not receiving much attention, and suddenly that person becomes ill. Well, with that illness comes attention. With the attention comes a different type of love, a different type of care. People are contacting her, people are coming to see that person. Well, in that case, maybe there's a part of the identity of a poor me inside her, inside this person, whom might not want to heal, because healing means that attention disappears. And we're in a society which is craving for attention. Social media, platforms, sports, activities, success. There's attention, constant quest for attention, 24/7. People are seeking our attention. All these platforms, Netflix, Disney, whatever, they're basically seeking our presence with them. The only person who's not actually giving ourselves attention is us. So now, one of the exercises or one of the suggestions that I was having for myself and I've been looking into, and maybe that can help you, is to start looking for our primary and secondary benefits in our situation. When we find ourselves in a wonderful, great, positive situation, yeah, let's look at the primary and secondary benefits of that. They're not always negative. Many times they might be positive. However, when we start feeling stuck, that's when we need to go and look at our benefits. What am I seeking for? What am I not daring? What's my biggest fear? What's the benefit within this situation? How am I asking for only external help, support, attention, care, love, whatever it might be? So one of the points on identity is how we can identify with those benefits. And once we've started really looking at ourselves, and that's not an easy thing, let me tell you, daring to go through the self-development and the deconstruction of our identity is going to take some work. I call it work because it's energy that we're going to use. We're going to decide to make a decision to create that change of our identity, of saying, not anymore. This is not something which I wish for myself. Right. So I'm seeing that this is acting in such a way. That situation is bringing me this mirror. Let me look at myself and say, hey, is this me? Is this what I would like? No. Okay, so let's see how I can change that benefit, how I can give myself what I'm asking from that situation or from others. And then I can start building my new growth. It takes time, step by step. It doesn't mean that Rome was built in a day, but it can go really fast too. The more we start looking at ourselves in the mirror, the more we start giving ourselves love and those benefits, and noticing that they're not really benefits when they come from someone else. They're basically just a crutch. But when that crutch goes, everything falls apart. So we'll seek for another crutch and another until we start giving ourselves that own sense of identity. I've seen many people through therapy who wanted to stop smoking or change their life, start traveling, or change their job. And all these fears many times came from beliefs, from those benefits. It could be basically a silver spoon in our mouths, or it could be the golden cage. There's a good salary, so we're not ready to change, but we're very unhappy. There's this situation, so we're not ready to change because we're afraid of being alone, of not knowing what's going to happen. Yet we don't know what's going to happen in 10 minutes, let alone in 6 months or 1 year. But we fear in 1 year. We're not afraid of in 10 minutes. We're kind of, okay, in 10 minutes, in 1 minute, that's fine. We don't know what's going to happen, but we're okay with it. But suddenly, 1 year, 2 years, we start being afraid. Why? Well, let's look at those benefits and let's start focusing on the outcome. Because what if it could come out better than what you thought? What if that work that you're doing within yourself is going to actually bring you that joy, that abundance, that relationship, those travel experiences that you've been seeking for? And those emotions, maybe those sensations of peace, calm, freedom that you might still be seeking for. So the question with that is, how are you going to move forward? For my part, I've had many jobs or relationships, and I've lived in various countries, as I was saying. I even came to decide to live in my car for 18 months just to live the experience of minimalism, living with the equivalent of 3 backpacks, learning not to possess, having things, seeing that we don't really need them, and then being able to appreciate everything that I have. up to just a cold shower. And then I managed to just outgrow this, find peace in the quiet. But I had to go through all my primary and secondary benefits, collapse all my fears. And I think that within this outcome, if it's something that you're seeking to reconnect with yourself, to let go of your fears and to see a new identity, well then you can build something new. I was talking about smokers before. Smokers, for example, very often have an identity of having a cigarette during a break. Or parents also, some parents start smoking when they have kids. Why? Because it gives us that break where they can tell the kids, don't stay close to me because that's unhealthy. That was basically a benefit. So when we start deconstructing, we can start looking at our identity and we can build a new relationship with ourselves and with our identity, and then start creating a new outcome. So in this podcast, we've discussed identity, fears behind our own identity or what created this identity, what we might need to look into as primary and secondary benefits, and how overcoming these benefits can actually generate a new outcome and a new situation in our lives. In order to change our life, our situation, well, there's a good part of it which will require having a look at this identity. So with that, I'd like to leave you with just a thought. Take the time today or in the next few days to sit down and start looking at those situations which don't work in your life. And with these situations, start looking at what your fears are, what your primary and secondary benefits are, and start looking at the outcome you're looking for. Because what I've learned from life is one essential lesson. If you want to change and to reach another place, well, the first thing that life is going to give you is the training. And that comes through lessons. That comes through it not working. That comes through experiencing. If you wish a certain type of relationship, well, you're going to have to outgrow your old ways. If you want another job, well, you're going to explore new skills, new competencies, and then slowly you're going to reach your goal. So it's not something bad shifting from A to B. It just takes that change of yourself. And then, yes, you will reach that new outcome and new identity and new reality. So to all of you out here, I wish you a lovely day, a lovely evening, wherever you are in the world. And don't forget to, if you enjoy this podcast, comment, subscribe, follow, join, share this to whom you may feel needs to hear this today for their change in their lives. And until next week, I wish you a lovely week. Take care of yourselves. And if ever you feel the needs to contact me in private directly, you have all the information in my channel.